What's up, guys? Farooqi Bros here, back with another podcast. And today, for you guys, we're going to be continuing our coverage of New York Film Festival and Toronto Film Festival. As you know, part one, you could catch it a couple of weeks back. As we kind of roll out towards the end of the year, we want to cover all the films we didn't give specific time to. And then also, we're going to do our rankings of each film festival and talk about what were the highlights of the two that we attended. So let's get right into it. I want to start with a bit of a roundtable review format where we're going to kind of go around from the Farooqi Bros, give our thoughts on all the films we've seen. Some of the films not everyone has seen, some films some have. So whoever the key reviewer is will take over on each thing. But I want to start with the film that all three of us have seen and enjoyed quite a bit from Toronto Film Festival, and that's American Fiction. So American Fiction, this is based on a book of the same name, and it stars Jeffrey Wright, and it's a very interesting movie where I think it kind of it subverts the genre, and it tells a story of kind of stereotypes and what does it mean to be Black in today's society, and what are the expectations that white America puts on you, what are some of the expectations that Black America puts on you, and how do you as a person in this community find their way, and that is played out over multiple key characters. And I was actually very, very surprised and very, very happy when I came out of this movie, because I think the writing was just crisp. And you can make a case for some of the crispiest writing of this year. And the acting was pretty good too. I wouldn't consider the acting to be the best of the year, but I think the writing, I think the direction, I think the storytelling was very strong. I think it's genuinely one of the funniest movies of the year. I know, Zion, you saw it a couple of times. You saw it with also not just the press crowd, but you saw the general crowd too, and you can speak on how that elevated your experience. But for me, I got to say, it's actually one of my favorite movies of the year. So, and it was highly decorated on my nomination for the Critics' Choice ballot that I submitted last week. So overall, really excited, very happy with American Fiction. I think it's going to do quite well in the upcoming award race. So I'm going to jump to you next. What do you think about American Fiction?
I agree that I think writing wise is absolutely just brilliant, very, very sharp writing. It's a terrific mirror to society, like you said, to the African American experience, to what is being given to them, what they're being forced to consume in the media, and how they're being portrayed as in a certain way to feed this certain stereotype or mold that's been created about them, and how in this character of Thelonious, how he just deals with that and his place in that, and how he kind of reflects on the society that kind of feeds into that. And I think it was such brilliant commentary. I think the writing, like you said, was absolutely crisp. I think it hit on every single note, and it deserved the accolades it got in Toronto Film Festival as like the People's Choice winner of the film festival. And like you said, I got to see it with a local audience as well. And I think, and it was such a great experience because they absolutely love the film. Because it's like you look at the audience, who will it be for? Is it for the white audience? Is it for the Black audience, or will it be for everybody? And I think I had a good mix of audience members where it was primarily African American, but there were others as well, and everybody was just so reactive to all the scenes and the comedy, because it really does hit home in a way for the Black American experience and what is being portrayed in the media about them, and what stereotypes are being fallen on towards them. So I think it just hits the nail on the head every single time in this film. And even through the comedy, there is a lot of sincerity and a lot of heart in the film. And I think that all plays into what made this a very well-rounded and a very terrific film from either of the film festivals put together. So I have very high regards to this film, and hopefully it does continue to get the accolades in the award season as it goes along.
Samir, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty much the same. I think the writing was incredible. I feel like it was flying a little bit under the radar when we went to TIFF, because I know a lot of the fan favorite like front runners were The Boy and the Heron and The Holdover, so I didn't expect it to win, and I'm glad it did. I think the writing was so good that it really did deserve it.
Great. I mean, let's move to the next one. That's Anatomy of a Fall. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to catch it, but I know Zion and Samir have spoken very highly about it. So, Samir, I'll just go backwards with you. Start with us? What do you think of Anatomy of a Fall?
Anatomy of a Fall. I think it has a good chance of being maybe the best foreign film this year. It was pretty long, in my opinion, but it didn't feel all that long. I like the court drama aspect of it, and I like leaving it. I like how they left it kind of ambiguous. You don't know if she did it or not. And I think me and John disagreed whether she did or not, which is nice. Um, the acting was great. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. I got nothing.
Yeah. No, so overall, I mean, before you goes on, I've only heard good things about this film. Like everyone's just been praising it and wanting it to be. There's been people who are saying this deserves a Best Picture nomination, John. So, are you in that boat, or where did you stand on the movie?
I am glad that it's getting very good word of mouth and very good like hype around it, because like Smith said, it is a full-on courtroom drama through and through, and there is that kind of detective mystery element, because even as an audience member, you're kind of like a jury member in a way, and you're analyzing the case, you're analyzing the facts as they come along, and the perspective, whether it's from Sandra Hüller's character or her son Daniel's character in the movie, all these side characters, or the lawyer himself, who also did a very great job. I think you're seeing all their perspectives on this case, the things they're saying, and then all the evidence, everything to be presented. You as an audience member also kind of creating your head that, okay, let me create the scenario. Let me see, what do I feel happened with this character and her husband. Was it an accident? Was it murder? What was the case? Was it the son? You know. But all these things, you play into that, and I think they do take it to places that are very interesting, especially where the son was doing the experiment on the dog with like the pills, and it's like, okay, it's showing you all these different angles of what could have possibly happened and transpired, and all the facts that feed into that. And I think that really elevates the experience as an audience member, where it's not just spoon fed to you. You're kind of there, and you have to make your own interpretation of the scenario, and then come up your own conclusion as well. And regardless of what they decided in the end of the film in the courtroom about her guilty or innocent verdict, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what do you, the audience member, feel really happened? And I think, like Smith said, me and him disagreed on kind of what we thought about it. And that really adds into just how terrific the film was. And it is a long film, so even with that, I'm glad that people are really are receptive to it and are enjoying it, because you wouldn't think that typically this would be a film that most people would really be into, but it is a very terrific film overall. And I think it has a strong chance. I think for me, it should win the best foreign film, but that's just me. I think it is a very strong film in the film festival race.
And then moving from two films that were universally beloved to another film that has pretty good reviews, but also a little bit of controversy in how people are taking it. That's Zone of Interest. Samir, I'm going back to you with this one. What did you think about Zone of Interest?
So for the majority of it, I think a lot of people really love this film. For me, it didn't really hit as hard. I understand the concept of what they're trying to go for, like the juxtaposition of having this Nazi family right outside Auschwitz, and they're just living their life, which worked for me for like the first 10 minutes, and then after that it was just the same mundane nothingness. I think there were some moments in this movie that were interesting, like the black and white night vision scenes, or like some of the writing with the bedtime stories he was telling, which was like an allegory for what was happening, or the ending. But I feel like those moments were just stringed together by some of the most boring cinema I've seen. And it's getting a lot of praise for its cinematography, which I get. It was really fitting for the tone that they were going for, but I feel like the cinematography was also kind of boring, in my opinion. It was good, but it was boring.
I have somewhat similar thoughts. I do think it was shot in an interesting way, where it is a still camera and the characters move about the room rather than the camera following the characters. That's how it was in every single scene, where it's like a set camera in the back, and it's like you have this frame, like a painting almost, and the characters just move within it. And I think that was interesting throughout the movie. But I agree with Samir in the sense that pacing wise, it was incredibly so slow, in the sense that it didn't necessarily need to be. I get, like Smith said, the purpose of that, and you're kind of just like showing this, how they're just living their like almost mundane lives, and right on the other side of the fence, there's like horrific acts taking place, and it is a unique perspective in that way. So I do agree that it brings that level of like a fresh take to this part time in history that's obviously a very horrific time. But I think that overall it is a very slow film where it didn't really move the needle too much. Like maybe I don't know how long the movie was, like 2 hours or something, where maybe every half an hour you moved an inch, you know. So it's like, okay, you start going through it, it kind of feels mundane in a way. But I think that last shot of the film towards the end where he's standing in the hall when it's flashing to the museum, it's like, and he starts throwing up, and the guy starts throwing up just at the thought of it. I think that was a very powerful moment. I think that does make things like the film like kind of hit home in a way. But overall, as a film, I think it was a little too slow for me, and it didn't work for that reason.
Yeah, I really like the ending. I like the way that he kind of like stared towards the camera, like he stared into the void, kind of, and it was like an amplification of what it was saying the entire movie. The thing is about that is that if I just watched that last 2 minute scene, I kind of understood what the entire movie was about without having to watch everything that happened before it, which is kind of like
Yeah, I
counterproductive.
think that's like the perfect description. That's exactly how I feel as well.
Yeah, good points all around. And for what it's worth, both Anatomy of the Fall and Zone of Interest were nominated for Critics' Choice. So they're both for Best International Film. So I expect when the Oscar nominations come around, I think they were for Golden Globes as well. When the Oscar nominations come around, we'll see if either or any come out on top and win. But yeah, let's see how it goes. From that, let's move on to a film that's been a bit of a fan favorite. Like people have been really talking about this one on social ever since it debuted, and that's Dream Scenario. Nicolas Cage, back in the drama comedy chair. Samir, I'm gonna start with you again on this one. What did you think about Dream Scenario?
Dream Scenario, I think it was one of my favorite films at TIFF. I really like the premise of it. It's a really interesting take on like cancel culture and a really really creative premise. The dark humor was really good. I mean, I could tell that it was produced by Ari Aster just by the dark humor, and Nicolas Cage killed it in this role. Um, Overall, it was pretty good. It wasn't like one of my top of the year, but it was really entertaining.
Zion, what about you?
I agree. I think the writing was pretty sharp. It was like a interesting mirror to today's idea of cancel culture, and it kind of showed both sides of it. Both kind of like the instantaneous rise to fame and the viral sensation aspect of it, and then how quickly, just overnight, everything can change and you become like a pariah almost. And the writing was kind of spot on in that regard. And Nicolas Cage, he did a very good job of playing this kind of forgettable everyman, and how he kind of received himself or was receptive to his stardom, and then how the people around him were receptive to it. It was a very interesting film and engaging film because of that, because you see him just going through along and with all these other characters, how they perceive him as they're seeing him in their dreams in one way or the other. And I think what really hit home for this movie was the ending, because it did not end the way I expected to. It was actually a much more unfortunate ending for the character than I would have expected or even liked. But I think that added into why this film was actually pretty great. And I did enjoy it very much.
And then back on the awards circuit, Dream Scenario did not get nominated for anything for Critics' Choice, so it was snubbed there. But for the Golden Globes, Nicolas Cage was nominated for Best Actor in a Comedy. So let's see. I don't. From my understanding, people are saying very good things about it, but I'm not sure if critics are the ones who are making it their darling or just the general audience are liking it. But overall, I think it is one of the more interesting movies of the year. Let's keep moving forward. Let's go to Promised Land. Yeah, I'm gonna start with you in this one. What do you think about it?
I actually enjoyed it a lot. I'm a huge fan of Mads Mikkelsen in anything he does that isn't an English film, because for some reason they just don't know how to write for him. But I think in this film, the script was very well done, where he just took this character and just kind of ran with it. He kind of just portrayed him in a way that was very, very believable, and you kind of see him going through the struggle of almost greed and then to kind of like realization of what he really wants in life. And I think as he goes through it with his side characters, his supporting characters like the priest character or the woman, the worker woman who ran away, and her husband, and the child as well. I think that all played into his character and how he responds to everything around him. I think overall it was actually a very strong film. It did not hold back in its themes of power and gluttony and greed and slavery almost in a way, and the way that played into it. And I think all the characters in the film did a very great job. So even in almost an ensemble cast kind of way, though a lot of them weren't too well known. Maybe they are in international audiences, but to American audiences, I don't think they were. At least to me, they weren't. So I think, but overall, everybody did a terrific job, and I'm really like how things resolved and the way things went in the story. So obviously, it's based on a real guy. So I think overall, it's a strong film, and I very much enjoyed Mads Mikkelsen's performance in it.
Samir, you also saw it at Toronto, right? What did you think about it?
I thought it was pretty entertaining for a period piece. I haven't really seen Mads Mikkelsen in any other foreign film, which I know Zelda's telling me to watch them because they're pretty good. But yeah, I think this is like pushing me towards watching them. It was pretty good. I really didn't think about it all that much after seeing it. I think watching it was entertaining, but then after it was just all right. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So let's go to our last of the reviews, and this is one that Zal will be taking solo. So our schedules didn't align for me and Samir to see it. But what did you, Zal, think about Ferrari?
Ferrari is interesting because there was so much hype around it. Michael Mann with Adam Driver, and I think it had its good moments, but I think it kind of fell short of the terrific movie that we were expecting. Though it wasn't a bad movie, I think it was good. It was interesting. All the character moments were interesting between him and Penelope Cruz, who I think was the best actress, was the best actor in general in this film, and she deserves like any supporting actress nomination that she'll get. And I think that those character dynamics between all of them is what really played into the film being enjoyable, because some of the racing, yeah, it was cool, the way it was shot and the way it was done, but there's only so much races you can watch in a movie because that's not what you're watching a movie for. So it started getting a little slow, a little kind of boring almost. But overall, it was not too bad of a film. I think Adam Driver was just okay. He didn't give like some kind of incredible, game-changing, Oscar-winning performance or anything. But I think him and Michael Mann coming together is a good precursor to maybe them working together for the Heat prequel that's like rumored to come out. So for those reasons, I think it was all right. There were some shocking moments where I was watching the theater, people were like gasping when it happened, and things do come out of nowhere. So there is a certain enjoyability in that, but overall it was a little slow for me. So I wasn't really too receptive to it.
It's interesting. Ferrari, alongside Napoleon, which we discussed last week, are considered to be the biggest snubs of 2023 because both for Golden Globes and for Critics' Choice, 0. So Ferrari also, I think people are coming in saying something Ferrari would be a technical award, but the critics, and I haven't seen it, so I couldn't have considered it, but for the critics, they've completely shunned it out, and it looks like this movie is going to come and go, sadly, and not make much of an impression. So between these 7-8 movies we covered now and the 8 to 10 we covered in our last podcast, we've covered all of our film festival reviews that we were able to get to. So now we've done that, I want to kind of go with that 30,000 view angle and look back down at everything that we've seen. And this might be almost like a little precursor to our final podcast of the year, which will be looking at the top 10 of the year. But let's just get right into it. What do we think is the best movies of these two festivals? Number one was the best movie. If you guys prefer doing a full ranking, you want to list them down, you can do that. I know, Samir, some of us saw more movies than others, depending on the festival. So let's get right into it.
Well, before we start, disclaimer. Yeah. Are we counting double back movies? Like Boy and the Heron was at NIF and TIFF. Hitman was at NIF at TIFF. So
I would double it. Anything we saw twice, because then we'll cover it as it was also in that festival. And what do we think about it? Unless it's not already in your list and you have a hard time doing it, I would say Chef's Choice.
No, it's in there. Yeah, it depends. Then it changes what the rankings are. So
yeah. So then who? So if Zian, you're ready, you can start. Otherwise, if Samir's ready, you can start. I'll go last.
All right. Well, let me just pull it up.
You want to speak? You want to send it to us, or you want to say it?
I can send it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be interesting. I think I don't know how many. While I'm sending it to me, I don't know how many of the films this year on the film festival are going to end up being in our top 10 lists, which are coming out next week. But I think I'm going to upload it right now. I think that people are going to be overall excited to see what made it, what made it make it. Oh, got it. came as a.
You don't forget. I'll just say it. I'll just say it.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
So I guess I'll start from the bottom first, and I'll run through it kind of quick. Last for me would be Zone of Interest for the reasons we just talked about. I think of the narrative wise, it was good, and it does have a good message to it, a strong message to it. But I think as an audience member, movie wise, it is just snail pace to the point where it's like almost unwatchable in a sense. So I think that is unfortunately last for me for my TIFF like ranking. Next would be Hitman. I think it was a Bates level enjoyable film. Story to go in interesting ways. Well, the ending was pretty interesting, not the way I expected to go. But that is because it's more of like, yeah, it didn't break the barriers in any way. It was kind of like run of the mill kind of fun action film. That would be second to last for me. The next would be Dream Scenario. Now, between this and the next one, I was going back and forth, but I think at the end, it was really just between Mads Mikkelsen and Nicolas Cage for me. So I'd have Dream Scenario here at fourth. It was fun. It was a good film. I was engaged in it, but it's just fourth because personal preference, I guess. And third, I'd have Promised Land. I think I'm just a big fan of Mads Mikkelsen, and I just enjoyed watching on screen. I think he did a great job. But between 3 and 4, Dream Scenario and Promised Land, I think they're neck and neck. So like it depends on the day. Tomorrow could be like Dream Scenario is third and Promised Land's fourth. So they're kind of equal for me in that way. But just personal preference, I'll put Promised Land third and Dream Scenario fourth. 2 and 1 was very difficult to decide between, and I was kind of going back and forth. But at the end, I decided that American Fiction was second best for me for TIFF. No knocking it at all. I think it is an incredible movie. It was very terrifically written. But I think number one, which is The Boy and the Heron, which it was just a near perfect movie in every single way. And animation does not discount it at all. You know, people are like, oh, you cannot count anime or animation in the same level as a regular live action film. But I do not think that's the case. I think this stands on its own, and it's a very terrific film, both score-wise, writing-wise, animation-wise. And that would be my number one film for Toronto Film Festival.
Nice. Samir, why don't you jump right in? Clear yours. You have a lot, though. You can work on it. And you don't have to go through one by one each sentence, but if you want to go through your...
I'll go through. Why don't you just put up my list? Do you have my list?
I do, yeah. Let me pull it up. All right. This is your Toronto, right? Can you read it? Can you move out the banner?
Yeah, I mean, I got to see a lot more.
Yeah. You are the resident Canadian, of course.
I guess I'll start from the bottom. Let's go through every movie.
Yeah.
The movie at the bottom, They Shot the Piano Player. I think I had this last I went in. I had no idea that this was a documentary when I went into it because it was an animated thing, and I read the premise of it, and I thought it was pretty interesting. But when I sat down and watched it, it was probably the most boring thing I've seen all year, and not because of the documentary, just because the way it was told. And the animation, I don't understand why they would even animate a documentary like this. It really added nothing to it. It was just super static, the animation, which like echoes the entire documentary. Super boring, super bland. I don't know why Jeff Goldblum is even voicing the main guy. It's just so random. I mean, he's a pretty good voice actor. He should do more.
Life finds a way.
Yeah, he should do more voice stuff. That's how good he is. That's like the only redeeming thing about this documentary. It's like the only reason I have watched it, if I knew. And moving on from that, Knox Goes Away, which is Michael Keane's debut directorial film. This was really nothing special at all. Just super bland. Al Pacino is in this movie for some reason, and he's like just there. He's basically playing himself. The premise of this movie is basically that there's this hitman who is a big fan of philosophy or something, and then his son commits murder or something, and he has to like fix it, which is weird because Hitman is also about a guy that's really into philosophy, and it just does the premise so much better in such a more entertaining way. This was really nothing special. I gave it a 2.5 stars. I think super forgettable, super boring. Then I have Dumb Money, which is like about the GameStop short squeeze. Paul Dano is okay in this. it's just all right. It doesn't do enough, but it doesn't touch on the rich people are bad commentary enough to like having said anything. Just the editing is good. It's just a fun like movie experience. Nothing all that special. Then I have Ezra, which I barely remember. It was all right. I mean, Robert De Niro is a pretty good actor. Uh, Again, I don't know why he's in this movie. It's just so random. His role is just so weird. But the kid is a really good actor. Um, yeah. Then I have Rustin. Then I have Rustin. This was produced by. I'm like pretty sure this was produced by the Obama production company. I think, right? That's why there was a message. There's a message before this film played to Toronto from Obama, saying that this is a story that needs to be told, and I agree with that. But the thing about this film is that it was just so bait. I think it wasn't all that good. It felt really cheap. Uh, Domingo, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He was great in this movie, but the overall way it was handled, it wasn't all that good. I think it could have been better if it wasn't a Netflix produced biopic, it would have been better. Just because it felt super cheap at the end, and they did not cook with the Martin Luther King casting, and Chris Rock is playing a serious role in this movie, which is nice to see. It's like out of his comfort zone. It was all right. Then has the Zone of Interest, which is pretty low because of the reasons we already talked about. Then Hitman, which we talked about, yeah, in our previous podcast. Then I have The Peasants, which also this movie, the premise of this movie was super bizarre. I think I'd have it right next to like Saltburn as some of the most bizarre stuff I've seen. Um, I know they mentioned the cast was there, and they mentioned that it took maybe 5 hours to paint out each frame of this movie, which is like a huge accomplishment. But I think it really didn't add all that much to it, as it would have with Loving Vincent, maybe, because some of the high action scenes, it doesn't really make sense to have them painted out. It doesn't really play out really well. Um, Overall, it was all right though. Then I have The End We Start From, which I think has some of the best cinematography I've seen of the entire film festival. Again, the premise was like post-apocalyptic survival type of film, and Benedict Cumberbatch is in this movie for 2 minutes. I don't understand why he's in this movie either. It was all right. Not much to say about it. Then I have The Holdovers, which everyone loved this movie. It's just a 70s like Christmas coming of age type movie. Uh, kind of wholesome, kind of heartfelt. To me, I didn't really resonate with it all that much. I mean, I'm a fan of that style, but to me, it wasn't really doing anything all that special. It's not like something that hasn't been told before. That's why I have it a little bit lower. I still gave it 4 stars, I think. Uh, then I have The Promised Land, which we just discussed. It was all right. Then I have His Three Daughters, which is probably the most emotional film I've seen all year. I went to the press screening for this, and everybody was crying out loud. It was really sad, the premise.
Actually, I never even heard about this one. Like, it's been off my radar.
This was with Elizabeth Olsen was in this, and the other 2 actresses who I don't know their names, but they all did it really well. All the performances were great. I was surprised that it isn't getting recognized as much, just because the performances were so good, and it was so emotional. Then I have Dream Scenario, which we just talked about, Anatomy of a Fall, and American Fiction, and The Boy in the Hand. We discussed all 4 of these films because they really are like the top echelon. I think I have them. I have the top 3 all in my top 10 for the year. That's how great they were. And Dream Scenario, we discussed already.
Yeah, the boy and the Heron's getting quite a bit of love, and I went to a Toronto Film Festival. I saw a couple of films, but I had a very tight schedule, so I was only making for a little while. But instead, we're going to move right to New York, and this time I'll start off my New York instead. So it's great. What are the best films in New York Film Festival? Let me get my list on board. All right, here we are. So for New York Film Festival, I'm going to go from bottom up, and actually, I actually liked every single movie at Film Festival. I have no problems with any of the movies I saw. I think I enjoyed all of them. I think there's a level of craftsmanship and detail to even be selected for New York Film Festival. So and that's all showed in spades throughout this list. But at the bottom of my list is Hitman. And I'm here for the Glenn Powell movement that he's moving up and up and up, and ever since Top Gun, he's been just exploded and getting more and more roles. So I'm here for it. I think it's a funny role. I think it was interesting. I think it was just your standard fun comedy movie. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with Hitman overall. And we saw it both at Toronto and New York. So in both viewings were good. And I felt the same coming out of both of them. I'm not dying of laughter about it, but I still think it's one of the funnier movies of the year. The next on the list is The Killer. This is, your David Fincher, Michael Fassbender. I mean, I came to this movie with really high expectations because the names associated, particularly David Fincher, you're expecting like a masterpiece level movie. And Fincher, very similar to he has a very similar aesthetic style to Matt Reeves. They both come from the same school of thought when it comes to making these movies, and you can see that kind of influence on it. Sometimes I was like, am I watching a Batman movie or something? But unfortunately for me, when it comes to Fincher's own the bar he set for himself, this falls under it. And this might be a hot take, but I think Michael Fassbender is he's starting to fall off a little bit to me, like as an actor. He's been great, but I feel like over the last 3 to 4 years, there's been nothing that's like, yeah, I'm here again, but that's my opinion. But overall, I think it's still solid. I like him with Hitman. They're very similar movies. In hindsight, I might put Hitman above it, but they're both good, Next is Priscilla. We actually never did a full Priscilla discussion. In hindsight 2020, I should have put it into our film reviews. Maybe on this one we'll go a roundtable on it again, because this should have been in our other thing. But Priscilla, I was actually fairly surprised about it. For me, it really felt like almost like a compendium, an epilogue to Elvis 2022. This big movie with Baz's style directing it, and you have Austin Butler, and has all the bells and whistles. It's loud, and it's rambunctious, it's bombastic. All the things are happening with that movie, and then you have this really quiet, really subdued, really claustrophobic movie with Sofia Coppola directing, and it just feels like almost like I said this in my review. I said it's the yin to the yang of that Elvis movie, and it's like they fall together quite well. And this was the last movie we saw at New York Film Festival. I think it was quite good. Unfortunately, like Ferrari, like Napoleon, no love being shown for film festival for the award circuit. But I do think it was quite good. It's not in my top 10 either, but I think it was a solid movie. I'll pause my list here because it should have been in our last topic, and I'll go around the room one more time. Zion, what did you think about Priscilla?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think it is the dichotomy of 2022's Austin Butler's Elvis, and now Sofia Coppola's Elvis, not Elvis, Priscilla rather. It shows two sides of the story and of these people, and I think this one is really more of a nothing held back, more of a not pure, but like more of a raw look at their relationship and what the pitfalls and the rise of it and everything. And I think it was very personal and very intimate in that way. And I think it does not hold back some of the portrayal or thoughts that the Priscilla's family and herself, they had about Elvis and their relationship. And I think that was a welcoming thing to see. It was a fresh take on film. And I think that really played into what made this a good movie. And that gave it that pure dichotomy between the very regular, stereotypical Elvis character, Elvis figure that we see in the 2022 film, and this one shows that other side of him, kind of behind closed doors, how he may have acted and how his personality might have actually been. And I think that was very interesting to see, and it keeps you engaged as an audience member as well to see those kind of moments between them.
Samir, what did you think about Priscilla?
Yeah, I agree with Yana. I'm glad that it's showing the true nature of such a glorified figure. I'm not a big fan of Elvis, so I'm all here for the Elvis slander. I think this movie was also made really well. I think it felt really suffocating the entire time, which was the intended tone for it. And the main actress, who I don't know her name, I'm sorry, forgetting her name. She was really good at Priscilla. Overall, it was pretty good. Not in my top 10, but up there.
Yeah, I was actually somewhat
Overall.
surprised, and I can't say I'm too surprised that I didn't nominate myself, but I'm surprised I didn't get any hair and makeup and things like that. Like just a little bit of love here and there. And then the
I
personal
think it's not a knock to this film. It's more that there are so many terrific films this year. It's like some just don't make it. You know, they can't make it because
and then
the competition was so stiff.
Yeah, and just to get the actress down, there's Kaylee Spaney, and then of course Jacob Elordi as Elvis. Let me move. In hindsight, we didn't have to do the round table because each of us would have covered it anyways. But it's okay, whatever. So that's some other list. Where's my list? Here you go. So continuing on, these next 4 movies we've covered in our last podcast about film festival. So I'm gonna go a little rapid fire on it. But May, December, I think it was just it was just a really solid film. I think it was worthy of getting the debut at New York Film Festival title. Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, both fantastic actresses, both kind of challenging themselves where no one phoned in this movie, that's for sure. Like from each cast member, top to bottom, everyone is doing a fantastic job. And that's why it's kind of become a bit of a darling for critics and for fans coming out of this movie, because there's just a huge amount of love for the cast, and there is love for the film and what's trying to do. It's disturbing, it's dark comedy, it's out there, it's not a clean movie by any means, but it's I think it's one of the more surprising films of the year for me. But it does not touch my top 3, and my number 3 is Maestro. And this is funny because our last podcast we recorded it the night we saw Maestro, so it was very fresh in our minds, and we were discussing on that podcast that is Maestro worthy of a Best Picture nomination, and we're now at the end of the year, and yes, it is getting nominations for Best Picture for both Critics' Choice and for Golden Globes, so it's doing quite well on that sense, and you can make a case that maybe. Our boy Bradley Cooper is really gunning for the Oscar hard in this one. And maybe this is his best shot so far. But overall, I still think it deserves 3rd place. I think it just shot very well, scores very, very well. It has all the technicalities done right. But for me, I always will not celebrate. I give more points to movies that take the extra mile and are risky rather than safe. So when it comes to risky movies, I don't think there's any movie quite as risky as Poor Things, which is, I think Emma Stone did an absolutely fantastic job. We've discussed before. I think she rightfully deserves all the praise she's getting and is a real contender for Best Actress. So I nominated Emma Stone personally for Best Actress in my list. She was nominated by Critics' Choice as well as Golden Globes. And I'm sure when the Oscar nominations come around, she'll be there too. I think it's not a perfect movie. There's things about it I think that are very overly grotesque. I think it insists upon itself in every stretch of the way. But the practical effects, the things they're trying to do, the overall message, and kind of this reverse Frankenstein movie, it grew on me over the last 3 months. I can't say I would have said the same thing the day we saw it, but I do think it's better now. And then this has come as no surprise because all 3 of us have been heaping praise in this movie. But Boy and the Heron is my favorite movie of both Toronto and New York. I just think Miyazaki's him. That's what else can be said? He's him. But that's it from my list. Zian, I'll go to you next. What did you kind of send me the list, or you can just say?
Yeah, I sent you the list. You can
pull it up. Go on for now while I upload it. It takes a second.
Sure. So last place from me would be Hitman. I think because of obvious reasons. I think it was a fun, enjoyable film. We already talked about it in Toronto Festival, but it's not on the level of quality and production in any of the categories as the other films. So naturally, it's last place for me. 9th place, this would be surprising, is Ferrari. It was an okay film. It was kind of boring. I did not really respond to it that much. I think it really was the hype around was more than the film actually ended up being. So for that reason, it would be 9th, and for obviously all the reasons we discussed prior when we were talking about the film individually. Next week, Priscilla, we just discussed that. I think it was a solid film, but for me personally, I don't think it was higher than the other films that I saw that are above it on the list. Number 7, The Killer. Unlike Strauss, I did really enjoy it, and I really enjoyed Michael Fassbender's performance and his scripted line delivery in the movie. I think he really was this kind of cold and kind of detached assassin, but really you see in the film that he is more emotional and more uh, I guess, distracted by those things that you wouldn't expect from a cold-blooded killer like him. So I think that created a unique angle to the movie where it's like a opposite genre kind of thing, you know. So I think I enjoyed it for that reason. Yeah, there's some issues with it. I didn't really like how things resolved towards the end, but for that reason, that's why it's a little lower on my list. Number 6 is Poor Things, which is a very, very different ranking than Strauss's number 2. I thought it was an okay movie. I liked the visual language, the visual style of it. I think it was very terrific. I think Emma Stone herself did a very terrific job, and Mark Ruffalo is great, and Willem Dafoe is great. But I think overall, it was too self-indulgent. It was too just into its own thing of what it's trying to do. And as an audience member, like, yeah, you get the point they're trying to make. It's like a coming of age story kind of thing, but it just kept going on and on and on. It's like, okay, we get it now. Like, as an audience member, I was growing tired of it. I was getting bored of, why do I have to keep seeing these things keep happening? And that really just hurt the movie for me. I get why they had it a little bit early on, but then it just kept going too self-indulgent for me, and that's why I have it towards the middle of the pack, unfortunately. Now, number 5, I have May December. This I was going back and forth between 5 and 4, but I ended up at 5th. I think it is a very strong film. I think all the top 5 films are strong for me. And like Shra said, the performances by both Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore were terrifically done. And I got to watch it a second time a few weeks back. And I think that second time even more so, I enjoyed it because you really get to see the intricacies of the performance, and you actually view the characters a different way the second time because you kind of know what you're getting into. So you start noticing the little nuances of the performances that they put into these characters and the little ticks they have. And I think that enhances it for me even more. For that reason, I have it 5th. I know it seems like the middle, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I think just the other ones I enjoyed more. La Chimera, this is flying under the radar. I think it should have made a little noise in the foreign film category, but it didn't, unfortunately. It's an Italian film. Me and Samir got to see it in the film festival. I think it's a very terrific movie. I think it touches on a very unique subject about life and death. You can see the full review that we had in our previous video, our part 1 video from a few weeks back. But I think overall, I think the way it was shot was beautiful. I think the performances were terrific. The way it ended was very powerful. And I think overall it's just a very unique movie. Maybe to like a general audience member, it might be too slow or it might be not moving fast enough for them. But I think for the story it was telling, for the characters, and for the journey that they were going on, I think it was done very well in this very unique movie. So I enjoyed it for that reason, having number 4. Number 3, I have Maestro. Between the top 3, it could go either way. I think they're all 3 absolutely terrific films. Like Shra said, Bradley Cooper's performance was incredible, and I think he deserves all the accolades and nominations coming towards him. Whether he should win Best Actor, I don't think so, but I think he should be nominated absolutely. And it was a great film overall. Anatomy of a Fall, I didn't get to see that in Toronto Film Festival, but I got to see that here, and it was absolutely amazing film. And we already discussed that a few moments ago. And for all the reasons I described then, I think it was just incredible movie. And I think just runtime was a little long, so it wouldn't be number 1 for me. And number 1, just like Toronto Film Festival, consistent. I think The Boy and the Heron is just absolutely incredible on every level. And it was just a very, very fun, unique, and very moving experience. Even the story was terrific between the mom and son and everything. For all those reasons, number 1 for me, The Boy and the Heron, for both New York Film Festival and Toronto Film Festival.
Awesome. Samir, you're going to take us home now and put your list on the screen. How would you rank your New York Film Festival? Let me get you in.
I think we have similar lists, I guess. With
you and me are more similar than
Hitman right
John.
at the bottom. Hitman right at the bottom. I feel like I have it just where I had it at TIFF, like 9th or 10th. That just shows how much better the movie that NIF were. I think just in terms of quality, there was a lot more at TIFF. Hitman, it was nothing special. It was really entertaining, but just the movies ahead of it have a lot more substance. Are just a lot better. Priscilla, we just talked about it. It isn't all that bad. It seems pretty low on this list just because all the other movies just set the bar really high, in my opinion. For May December, I feel like it's getting a lot of hype. A lot of people really like it. For me, I don't think it deserves as much hype as it's getting. I think it was pretty good, but it wasn't like Best Picture nominated type movie or Best Original Screenplay or whatever it got nominated for. I think it was really good and the acting was really good. But as far as that goes, that was pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I think it must not be that. I think the only one that I would really nominate it for would be Charles Melton for Best Supporting Actor, but everything else I think is not necessarily in the cards.
The Killer, I think we have differing opinions. Me and Zion are closer than Charles on this. Michael Fassbender, I think he's pretty good in this. I know his only other role, or maybe his only other role, his other role in this year was Taika Waititi's Next Goal Wins, which I slept in and missed at TIFF, which I didn't get to see. I think just off that, just the comparison off that, I feel like the ratings on that this is a lot better. I like the satire comedy type thing. It wasn't anything special like in terms of the Fincher bar, but it was all right in my opinion. Maestro, I wasn't as high on. I walked out on this thinking it wasn't as great as the rest of you guys did. I know Bradley Cooper is like really desperate for for the Oscar. I mean, he is pretty good in this film. He shows the entire life. His performance is really good the entire time. And I did not expect him to be as good a director as he is. I think it's grown on me ever since I've seen it, but I still would put it lower than the other films, regardless. Next I have La Camera, which we discussed pretty thoroughly. The premise of this was really interesting. They were cooking something. It was very slow, but I agree with Jan that it should have been recognized as a foreign film. And next I have Anatomy of a Fall, which we just discussed. Poor Things I have second. I know it's very bold and very like in your face, very overindulgent with its humor, really out there. To me, I think what it had to say was kind of overshadowed the negatives I had with it. That's why I have it so high. I think I have it high on my overall ranking too. I thought it was really good. Emma Stone, of course, killed it in that role. And of course, first I have The Boy and the Heron, since I am a Miyazaki guy. I had it first for TIFF. I think I have it second on my overall list, which we'll probably talk about in the next podcast. So I'm pretty high on that movie.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. It's going to be very interesting. Well, what did you guys think about Toronto Film Festival and New York Film Festival? Our list, which you guys attended or saw things at the general box office screening, let us know in the comments and join the debate, and then join us next week or maybe in the next couple of before the end of the year for sure for our overall top 10 of the year, where we're gonna just go for it. So from myself, from Zayan, and from Samir, we're the Farooqi Bros, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.